you wanna say about us? You can laugh at our courage, take this much. To have and to hold, continue to climb. There are hundreds more just like us.
Well, I went away for a week, came back and found out that I've been bumped over the 500 subscriber mark. Thank you, thank you. This will not be a shout-out video, but rather a way of addressing the most common question that I get. No, it is not, are you a Christian? Are you a theist? No, it is not, what's all that crap hanging off of your face? Now, the most common question that I get from friend, family, and subscriber alike is, where are you going with all of this? This 500 subscriber mark is not the only noteworthy event. First, I am just returned from Nighted Owls at Los Angeles, where I met a number of people that I've been talking with very intensely for quite a few months. In addition, I was given the unexpected pleasure of meeting a number of people that I had not been talking with quite so intensely, or perhaps not at all. And we proceeded to celebrate this by talking very intensely. So that was a marvelous time. But this is also not the only noteworthy event. The notebook that lives in my hip pocket is complete. Which is not to say that the work it contains is complete, but rather that I've simply run out of paper. In addition, I've reached a point in the presentation of my ideas on my channel where I feel I've covered enough groundwork to move into the interesting stuff. Now, that being said, I do have a snarky streak, as you well know if you've been paying attention. And I request your indulgence as I provide my reveal in my own fashion. And here I show both my innate lack of creativity in such endeavors and my distinct preferences in cinema. Pardon me a moment. I can't do a reveal without proper reveal music. So, here we go. In the third part of Open Reply to One-Trick Atheism, I used objects as representative of concepts. In their arrangement illustrated that once one accepts the possibility of meta-relationship, there is no natural limit to the number of degrees of recursion which can occur even between a very limited number of objects, and that the complexity of these relationships scale rapidly beyond our ability to track. At this point, the rather overt implication was that when faced with multiple objects wherein meta-relationship can occur, questions of complexity are rendered nonsensical. That given the prospect of a singular arrangement of objects, wherein we must regard the configuration of the meta-relationship, given their necessary derivation from the starting objects and the infinite scaling of complexity, or consider the object itself, the relations itself, the event itself as singular. Either way, we cannot consider this in terms of complexity. We find further in the structure of our argument that this problem of inapplicability of questions of complexity is effectively universal, and that all assertions strung between these two incomprehensible positions, the infinite complex or the infinite simplicity, that being singularity, our position between these two poles is nothing more than a choice. We then move on to the first of the games series, wherein we describe the arithmetic relationships presented by the opening arrangements of a chessboard, and find that it is both easily quantifiable and predictable. But we find that when faced with a problem of greater complexity, even one wherein the range of variables is limited and definable, the dynamism of the system prevents prediction. A special nod goes to Elena for being the person who recognized the immensity of this. We then go on to find that the variables, even having failed to yield us predictability, are but arbitrarily chosen. That both the definition of spatial relationships as innate to that with which we are concerned, this being a metaphor for conceptual relationships, operant relationships, this fails to lend us any significant correlation between the relationship demarcations that we would propose, whether innate or arbitrarily imposed, and the problems with which we are concerned. Quantification in systems of recognized complexity fail to give us predictability, and fails to give us innate, mechanical, or operant insight into the relationships with which we are concerned. In a sequence of seemingly unrelated videos, including the aesthetic, the satirical, the topical response, we have encountered a necessary principle, that being that most rudimentary of existential conclusions, that assessments on the human condition are made using the tools provided by and in the context of the human condition. One cannot deem an aspect of human thought to be of limited or no value without using it in the process wherein that statement is made. We then move directly to direct assessments and indictments of organization of information into recognizable patterns, the generalizations necessary for us to do so, the inherent cognitive dissonance of representational problems, and the fundamental disconnection between any representation of a thing with a selected order of complexity in the representation, and things so being represented. Going back, we find that a representation of complexity as discrete and discernible is selected. Going back, we find that quantification does not lend prediction, ultimately relies on arbitrary impositions on the problem, on the field. That even innate relationships between objects represent generalizations, and that where quantification, pattern, predictability fail us, we must consider the prospect of both infinite complexity and absolute singularity in that with which we are concerned. And, but recently, we find descriptions of the cognitive function of these operations, that we can most clearly define them as metaphorical in their relations. We find that the human descriptions of their condition, their environment, their relationship between, correlate more closely to the human condition itself, to the structure of the human mind, than any possible object of consideration. We are reminded of Heidegger's hammer, but instead drawn to a very particular proposition of syntax. The knowledge we gain through manipulation is the knowledge of how we manipulate. Specifically, how we manipulate. We have long recognized that there is a relationship between investigation and expression. But nowhere is it clearer. Nowhere is it clearer in our inquiries. The nature of the subject-object relationship, and when we try to ignore that a subject is present in all subject-object relationships. As we have come closer, as we have worked more diligently to describe the object as if we were viewing it without viewing it, the closer we have come to viewing nothing but ourselves. Inquiry is our purest form of expression. Stick around. This is when it starts to get interesting.
And a crushing blow to objectivity.